I always feel like it would be nice to go to these awards, but yeah, I mean, it's always cool to see
Are
what
you,
they come up with.
are
Yeah.
you wangling for a ticket, Toby?
Uh, Hello, and welcome to the third mini-series of the second season of The Social Economist. In this mini-series, we're going to have 3 episodes on social procurement. It's a very popular topic, but what does it mean, and what opportunities does it bring for social enterprises? To help me dive into this very exciting topic, I'm going to be joined by 3 guests. First, we're going to have Hina West, who's joining us from Social Enterprise World Forum. In our second episode, we're going to be joined by Ryan Dumer from the Municipality of The Hague in the Netherlands. And in our third and final episode of this mini-series, and also the second season of The Social Economist, we're going to be joined by Andy Daly from SEUK. It's been a pleasure to bring you these 3 mini-series at the end of 2024. We hope you enjoyed them as much as we have enjoyed making them. In this first episode of our third mini-series on social procurement of this second season, I'm delighted to be joined by Hina West, who is the Global Impact Director for People on Planet First, the Social Enterprise World Forum. Hina's working a lot on scaling a growing global movement of purpose-led businesses and working really with lots of networks across the globe to enable social procurement. It's been very nice to talk to Hina to understand a bit about People on Planet First, the interest of the Social Enterprise World Forum in this important topic of social procurement, and I hope you're going to enjoy listening to this conversation I had with her a little earlier in the year. I think maybe actually before we get into question 1, but maybe it's nice to also just introduce yourself as well for the podcast as well as SEWF.
I'm Hina West, recently joined the team at Social Enterprise World Forum to lead on our People and Planet First work, and I am their Global Impact Director.
Social Enterprise World Forum. Many people obviously will know what that is, but for those that don't know, could you tell us actually what is SEWF or SWF?
So, and I've been corrected. I'm not allowed to say SEWF, even though it feels natural to do so. So SEWF, or which stands for Social Enterprise World Forum, is a global convener of networks and enterprises that really embodies the ethos behind the People and Planet First movement, which I've recently come on board to attempt to scale and support our networks to deliver. And People on Planet First, the way that we look at it is around building a unified movement of purpose-led entities. And it's a global identifier or a verification system for all enterprises around the world that put positive impact for people and planet ahead of profit maximization for the wealthy. So there's a lot in there in terms of what we're trying to do. And it all started back in 2019. So I've only joined the team 2 months ago. But back in 2019, the team were at a SEWF event in Ethiopia, and multiple network partners within the ecosystem agreed that we needed to lay out the principles and common values that made up this business model, which we all call, well, many people called social enterprise. So off the back of that, a collaborative document was written, and this sparked an idea amongst these networks that there could be a straightforward and affordable verification put in place that would identify when these business models were being used. It would embrace what all the different kind of players within the ecosystem called social enterprise, but it would always have deep roots in indigenous and traditional communities. So that's where People and Planet First was born. So 4 or 5 years ago. And then since 2022, we have been working with partners around the world to ensure the verification system brings visibility to these enterprises that do put people and planet first, but working through networks that support them primarily. And it is a participatory system that is inclusive of different cultures, languages, and terminologies. I kind of think about SEWF as my home, but I'm not actually just part of SEWF. So I'm here to, or try to represent the now 91 network partners that are on board for the People and Planet First movement, and which is at the last check was operating in 130 countries. So FCWF is like my home, right? It just gives me like a home team to come back to, but really I'm attempting to work for and represent across all of the network partners which we've signed up to engage formally within People and Planet First movement so far.
Yeah, it's a lot of partners and a lot of countries. So that's
and
exciting.
Euclid, of course, right? Euclid Network. I should have really led with that.
I'm sure we probably insert that at the beginning.
should have said that right up front
Yeah.
with Euclid Network alongside.
What exactly does this verification system involve?
One of the key things behind the setup for People and Planet First is that there is a full acknowledgement that the current challenge is just too big for one organization, right? It needs to be addressed by the many, not just by one organization trying to sort it out alone. So the verification is a kind of a gift to the sector, an attempt to bring together the kind of any siloed working to try to add value in terms of creating a global movement. And the key thing around the verification scheme is that it's affordable, relatively speaking, compared to some other kind of schemes which are out there. It's, like I said, it's very simple. It's based on 5 core standards, primarily looking at if an enterprise is solving a social and or an environmental problem. Secondly, if it's selling goods and services to be self-sustaining, if it's reinvesting the majority of its surplus into its mission. And I'll say that one again because that's a really important element of the People and Planet First verification scheme. So that's reinvesting the majority of its surplus back into its mission, and that has to be done through a structure that can work forever. So it has to be sustainable. So that's looking at purpose, operations, revenue, use of surplus, and structure. Okay, there's a simplified system, but is it in depth enough? Does it actually cover enough to be viable, to actually lay to its claim that it's minimizing greenwashing, purpose washing? And I was met with quite a strong response in terms of kind of the detailed work that's gone in behind the scenes to be able to create these 5 core standards, right? This is not a kind of an easy tick box exercise, which this is a very in-depth process which matches many of the certification and verification schemes which are out there, but creates a simplified version of it. So just as an example, if your enterprise is already a WFTO member, you are automatically eligible to be verified by the People and Planet First scheme. So we already have an arrangement with WFTO, and that is just that's effectively a little bit of administration, and you actually don't have to pay the kind of the verification fee, which is nominally is low compared to sector standards. So it's 85 USD for an initial application, and then I think it's 70 USD for renewal each year. So my point being that there has been an analysis of all the schemes and verification systems out there, and there are some automatic entries through certain certifications and that enterprises will already have been signed up for, and that removes another barrier, because actually people will say, well, why would I need to sign up to this as well? I've already got this certification. I'm already a member of Social Enterprise UK. But this brings it together. This actually kind of unifies and hopefully simplifies moving forward. And we're working with those partner networks, not in competition. Which has to be very clear. We're not there to try to take anything away. We're there to hopefully add value and bring a global perspective and kind of support what those network partners are trying to do, and break down barriers in between.
But to get the verification, do you have to be market active?
Yeah, so ideally you need to be market active, whatever that means. So a market is right. So so I've worked in market systems for a long time, be it at Oxfam and WWF, and looking at kind of informal economies as well. It doesn't have to be sitting in the formal supply chains of the world. Your market is your market, right? So there are 5 areas which need to be evidenced to be able to get into the verifications scheme, and that takes an average of 2 weeks to be verified. There has to be some level of evidence, be it a profit and loss or a strategy where you are really integrating the environmental challenge or a social challenge, or maybe an impact report. There has to be something which shows you evidence in these 5 areas, and there is support to help with that, be it through your network partner, through the network partner which we're working with, or directly with the verification team which we have on board.
Social Enterprise World Forum is very active in supporting networks and procurement in general, I guess, from social enterprises. Why is this such an important topic for Social Enterprise World Forum?
So when we think about it, really, what is the biggest kind of power that you have in a market system, or as an individual, as a consumer, as a company, as a business, as a government? It's procurement being, if you're going to be technical about it, defined as the buying of goods and services that enable an organization to operate its supply chain, right? And ideally it needs to be done in a profitable way, and ideally in an ethical manner. So buying power, consumer power, how we spend our dollars, pounds, euros, is one of the biggest levers in which we can pull in a market system to really affect real and lasting change, right? And that cuts right across value chains. And within the People and Planet First business movement that we're building, this purchasing, procurement, buying is the biggest opportunity for growth. Okay, so to the point that we all buy things. And if you have big companies that are trying to increase its social procurement, trying to increase the number of purpose-led enterprises that it is purchasing from within its supply chains, that is a great thing, but it is very difficult to do if they can't find them, if those enterprises can't meet their demand for how much product they need to be able to keep that demand flowing and keep that supply chain flowing. So what we're trying to do is create a 2-market system where we match up purpose-led businesses, big and small, to be able to influence supply chains, to be procuring from more businesses, enterprises, which are putting people and planet first. And that's through creating a collective on one side, but also working with those big companies to help integrate that into their supply chains. It's filling a gap. Gaps, well, more than one gap within those within this kind of market system that we're trying to influence. We talk about it all the time. We need to shift market systems. We need to put being before our economy. We talk about this all the time, but there are some practical challenges which are not being addressed. And this is what the People and Planet First movement is trying to do. It's trying to take that global level kind of perspective, but it's also trying to offer solutions to actually create that change that we're all aiming for.
It's a really interesting topic which people are really keen to talk about at the moment, and we'll talk to Andy from SEWK for another episode where he can tell us all about what they're doing with the Bisocial Corporate Challenge in SEWK.
Yeah. That's great. That's good. Yeah, Social Enterprise UK are one of our partners within the People and Planet First movement as well. And actually, this week I'm involved in judging finalists for the Social Enterprise UK Awards, which will be in December. So yes, I know the organisation very well.
Procurement then is a big opportunity. People and Planet First is a very practical step to try and help enable this procurement. What are the other barriers which are really hindering and preventing more social procurement from social enterprises?
I would love to deflect to our partner networks, who are the ones which are on the front line dealing with this day in, day out. But as a collaborative, consultative organization, we speak to them a lot about what's actually happening, and some of the kind of the feedback that's come through really does depend on the extent of the country context and what the social enterprise ecosystem is like within that home country within that region or that continent, and that varies dramatically, right? And then also in terms of the size of the enterprise. So usually the larger the enterprise, the more equipped they are to be able to navigate the complicated system of social procurement. But many enterprises are small entities. You've got small and they're micro enterprises. You've got indigenous led enterprises in conservation areas, which are not going to be scaling into enormous organizations. They're just getting by. They're just trying to create a livelihood for their families and their communities. It's a very, very difficult thing for them to be able to navigate the system. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to support those network partners on the ground to build capacity, to try to ensure that resources are being channeled in the right way, that we can learn from each other across the network, which is very critical to supporting that especially that intergenerational growth, as many family-led enterprises are being handed down to the generation, which are being lost if the youth of today are distracted by something more exciting and shiny somewhere else. There's a lot in there. And so just, going back to that two market system, which we talked about. So where I suppose we're trying to take some of those barriers away and create a bit of a kind of a matchmaking kind of environment that brings together these purpose-led businesses and just eases the system. And I guess the other thing which has come to mind is how we define social enterprise, right? So that term can be quite a hindering terminology in itself. People have preconceptions about what it means. They think maybe it's just a business which is just ticking by, or it may not be taken seriously in certain environments, or it might be called something completely different. So cooperatives, fair trade entities. It doesn't have to just be called a social enterprise to be putting people and planet first. That's why we called it people and planet first. We haven't got the word business in there. We haven't got the word enterprise. We're trying to just create an environment where any entity which is working within this space can be unified under one terminology, one umbrella, one brand, one movement, and hopefully that will help the collective rise together, as opposed to a few rising to the top and the rest just being left to one side.
I mean, I'll be very happy if you can get it so people can understand what a social enterprise is, because it will save me a lot of effort when I have to explain what I do. It sounds very optimistic, the stuff around social procurement and people planet first. What do you think the next big step or the next step is in actually going further to being in a world where there's more social procurement as a default?
Sure, yeah. So I guess the way I look at it right now is we're kind of still in the startup phase. All the foundations have been put in place by the team before I joined. Again, I only joined 2 months ago, so I'm speaking on behalf of the team, and I can't take credit for everything that's been gone on already. But there's already the systems in place, the processes, the partners signing up are growing. The enterprises signing up continues to grow on a daily basis. The engagement is spilling out across the globe, and we're becoming more visible in different places. We're getting support from different companies who are seeing the value of what we're trying to do. So I guess the next big stage for me is thinking about, so what? So what if we get, all of these, enterprises around the world signed up that are putting people and planet first before kind of private profit? So what does it matter? So what are we going to do? What are we going to do from a kind of a collective advocacy perspective? What are we going to do to ensure more resources and funding are being put into the kind of the social enterprise sector in the right places to really drive that change of what we're doing to do? So me coming in specifically to look at impact, we have a team who are very brilliant at making all of what's happening. We've got verification leads, we've got great partnerships with purchasing with purpose, with good market. We've got great kind of the bones. So now it's like trying to work out, right, how do we drive that impact that we keep talking about? So we're trying new things. We're asking our community around, do you need support around capacity building? Do you need support around kind of spotlighting in the right places, market access, social procurement? So we're in this consultative process at the moment with the community around where to put the energy for maximum impact. So that's really what I'm focusing on. And I mentioned before we started recording to you, Toby, that one part of that will be me and my colleague Rebecca Dre from Purchasing with Purpose going to New York Climate Week at the end of the month and kind of engaging with some of the bigger players in this space, having time with the SEWF Alliance for Social Entrepreneurs. So it's around, right, who are these who are the next wave of who we need to engage with to elevate the great work that's gone on already and actually achieve what we're trying to set out to achieve. And I know that's a lot, but that's effectively what my job description is to come in and try and take the work that's been done and drive forward as maximum impact as possible with as many different target stakeholder groups and audiences as we can. Who are the next wave of who we need to engage with to elevate the great work that's gone on already and actually achieve what we're trying to set out to achieve? And I know that's a lot, but that's effectively what my job description is to come in and try and take the work that's been done and drive forward as maximum impact as possible with as many different target stakeholder groups and audiences as we can.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having big ambitions. I mean, that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and also really it's a big thing actually that at Climate Week there's social entrepreneurship being represented, and there is much more effort, I guess, than there used to be to try and actually put these different people in the conversation. So it's a good sign. It's a very good sign. So I think high ambition was reasonable.
Yeah. And then also, there's just the, doing a good job and kind of balancing home life and everything else at the same time. But it's great to be part of, not from the very beginning started before my time, but at a point where there's such opportunity for expansion or scaling. And I don't mean in a kind of purely vertical way, but I mean horizontally, right? So that now is a really critical time for a step change in this idea that came up 5 years ago. So I feel really humbled and privileged to be able to join the team and support what has gone on before and see where we can take it.
It is getting more and more exciting. So when I started at Euclid in 2021, that was also a big exciting moment, and now it seems to be every year there's something new coming up, which is really a good thing, a very positive development for the sector.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And every day's a school day, right?
Yeah, University of Life. But I have one final question, which is the most important question, which is whether or not you have a podcast which you'd like to recommend for our listeners.
Full disclosure, I am not a podcast person.
Oh, then some people just can't get on with them. Cut this interview. That's it.
That's it. I'm done. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be honest at the situation, but I know that a lot of people do. Like my husband listens to a lot of podcasts. If I asked him, he'd tell me it'd be like the Empire podcast or something like that. But I got a recommendation from within my network, which I wanted to share. So, and I will commit to listening to this one, and I will listen. But I will start listening to the Euclid Network podcast as well, Toby. I'll make a point of doing it.
Thank you.
It's just that my brain just works slightly differently, but I understand a lot of people love podcasts. So the one which I wanted to recommend is called My Green Future. Okay, so it's by Taimur Nabili and Dr. Darian McBain. So I worked with Darian years ago when I was at WWF, and I was working in the corporate partnerships team, and she was leading on sustainability for Thai Union Group. And she is an amazing woman and super inspirational. And I think if she's got involved in a podcast, it's got to be brilliant. So the way that they describe it is it's around the global demand for green skills skyrocketing, and that people who want to have careers in sustainability are, it's on the up. And this podcast is specifically to help navigate through that shift. So I think if anyone wants to move into the sustainability sector or wants support to kind of develop in this space, and you and I, Toby, we're so privileged to be able to work in a space, and at times you can feel like you're not achieving anything, or you're kind of is that double-edged sword of being in a purpose-led career path. So from what I can gather, this podcast, I think, is there to help the likes of us, to help those that are thinking about transitioning across. So that's my green future. Look it up.
I definitely will. It sounds very interesting, and I'm always in the market for a new podcast because I'm someone who consumes
You're
podcasts.
A podcast person, I assume.
An insane rate of podcasts, and I never have enough. So this is how I end up listening to total trash, but still I enjoy it. As always, I like to end the episode also leaving a recommendation of a podcast I myself quite enjoy. And this week, in this episode, I'm going to leave a recommendation of Politics at Jack and Sam's, which is a weekday podcast about the day ahead in UK politics. Maybe a little bit too UK focused for many listeners, but if you're curious to know what's going on, it's definitely worth a listen. It's nice and short, only 17 minutes or so each day, so good way to start the day. Thanks very much to Hina from SEWF and for talking to us about People on Planet First. I really enjoyed the conversation. And next week, we're going to be talking to Ryan Duma from the Municipality of The Hague in the Netherlands, who's going to be talking a lot about the work they're doing locally to encourage and empower and engage and build capacity among social entrepreneurs and social enterprises in The Hague. Thank you very much to our producer, as always, Jan Kishivara, who has to put up with me on every single episode. And thanks again to the European Commission for making this possible. Until the next episode, this has been the Social Economist. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Da, 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 da.